A special thanks to my Patreon supporters. What is the creepiest thing you've seen in the woods, mountains, or in remote areas? I was driving home after an extremely late night at work. I lived in the middle of nowhere. About a mile before I got there, a woman covered in blood jumped out of the woods into the middle of the road screaming. I panicked and went around her, then slammed on the brakes to help. Her boyfriend had beaten her and was currently chasing after her in the woods. I got her in my car and called the police. They met us at the hospital because I told them there was no way I was waiting on the side of the road when he was coming. Went on a mountain hike in Transylvania with a group of friends from school, and way up, after maybe 12 to 14 kilometers of trekking, we saw a house, was in the middle of nowhere. It had a barn, with a few animals, couple of cows, chicken, etc. As we get closer, we see a few people, a guy and 5 to 6 women. Not sure if there were more inside. The dude comes to greet us, barely speaking the language. We had a hard time understanding what he's saying. They lived without electricity, gas, anything. This is in the early 90s, so there's no internet, mobile phones to worry about. At least for most people. Anyway, they all looked weird, kinda dumb expressions on their face. We can barely understand each other. They asked us who's the president now, and if we want some milk. They look at our clothes and shoes weirdly, curious, like who knows when is the last time they had human contact. Or maybe there were more crazies around those parts, dunno. Not sure to this day what was going on. It's not typical in the region, so we kind of freaked out, especially cause the dude looked a bit disturbed, and we were too young. We were looking around to see if there's more of them. Paranoia was getting to us, thinking there must be a village nearby. What was also weird is that all the women kept their distance, and never got close to us. Like he was guarding them, or checking us out, if it's safe for them. One of my friends kept saying we don't want their milk, and we need to go, 'cause it's getting dark. We walked calmly for a while, then when we thought we're out of their sight, bolted like crazy out of there. Needless to say, we camped after a few hours, and we always had one person awake to keep watch. We told people that were living in the villages near that area, about the mountain people, and they didn't believe us. They said nobody lives there, up in the mountains. Doing urban exploration in a dilapidated church at night, on one of the floors was this circular motif in the floor where I guess a podium or something was. There was fresh blood on it as if something was killed there. When we went in the basement later on, we heard someone running upstairs. I'll see if I can find a picture of it. If it's in my tower PC, I probably won't be able to for a while though, since it's fried. When I was really young, we were on a family trip and me and my older brother took a ride on a boat. I remember my mom telling us to avoid the big floating thing. She thought it was a buoy to signalize a dangerous rock underwater or something. Being kids, of course we went straight there to explore it. So turns out it was not a buoy. That was a body of a tourist that went missing a week ago, as the police informed us a few days later. Creepy thing is he was one of a group of people that had disappeared together. I believe they never find the rest. So, not a good childhood memory. I was driving through rural parts of Missouri with a buddy. We drove down a single-lane road that had no exit. At the end of the road, there was a group of deer corpses laid in a perfect circle. I'd say there was at least 10 deer. We BTFO real quick. I'd been at football training with a few of my cousins when I was about 10 years old. We decided to take a walk before our parents picked us up, so we went along the canal towpath. My cousin looked down in the canal and saw a really nice jacket floating along, and being a weird scavenger person decided to reach in to fish it out. Well, the jacket turned over. And so did the man wearing it. He also had no face left. Not gonna lie, that was rough. I was mountain biking in the woods and I came across an East Asian-looking man in a perfectly fitted suit and a briefcase. Just casually walking through the woods. My girlfriend and I were hiking along some abandoned railroad tracks, and we get to a small bridge going over a little creek. I'm about to go explore under the bridge when she points something out. I look over and in the woods across from us I see a guy. I'm like whatever and keep headed down to the creek area, and then the guy stands up and he's naked. We immediately backtrack pretty quickly to get away from there, and once we're like 1 minute down the trail I look back, and this naked dude is just standing in the middle of the trail, watching us walk away. I was a cook on board several NOAA research ships. Up in the Bering Sea, I saw what appeared to be a massive, black, triangular-shaped craft dive under the water. I viewed it from a distance of maybe 2 nautical miles. In a patch of trees off of a field near where I keep my horses, there's one of those big oil drums sealed up with a very heavy boulder on top. The only way it could have got there is being placed by a tractor, or some sort of heavy lifting equipment. My partner and I tried to push it off, but no luck. I don't know why, but it creeps me out every time I see it. I regularly walk my dogs past it to see if they show any interest, but honestly after watching them look for a toy that was clearly in my lap I'm not sure I have much faith in them anymore. Update: thanks to everyone who commented, y'all made me realize that it could be something a bit creepier than I first thought, so I've reported it to 101. The officer I spoke to didn't sound particularly interested, but at least I know it's out of my hands, and I don't have to live with guilt if something is found. I intended on getting up there myself yesterday to have a look, but I had a pretty brutal physics session that left me pretty much incapacitated for the day. I'm off up tonight after work, so hopefully if the police haven't got there before me I might still be able to take some pictures for everyone. I thought my better half had taken a photo of it before, but I can't seem to find it in her phone. Anyway, thanks again guys for putting the fear in me, and making me do the right thing. So when I was 15, my friends and I liked to climb abandoned buildings. We found one down by the river. About 3 stories high and in pretty bad condition. I remember there were no stairs initially and we had to pull ourselves up. We climbed to the top via broken stairs after that. At the top was a small open room where someone was living. We walked in to look around and immediately noticed the walls were covered in pictures. Pictures of women tied up, naked, obviously in pain in all sorts of positions. Some appeared dead but they were from magazines. We never got out of a building and away from an area so fast. Looking back, it was probably just serious BDSM porn, but 15-year-old me dipped out. Walking on the beach with my boyfriend, and we had walked to a giant rocky cliff to make out. Somebody was just gazing at the ocean, crying and shaking. Mind you, this is late at night, like around 9:30 p.m. We asked him if he was okay, he apologized and practically ran back down the cliff, away from the dangerous areas. My boyfriend and I watched him until he reached the public area, and decided to call it a night. I'm pretty sure he was going to jump. My friend and I were chilling in the woods one day back in high school, and see a dog walking by, later followed by this kid. He looked troubled, so we asked if he needed help. He obliged, telling us he was dog sitting for his friend and the dog got loose. So we spent a good hour following this dog and kid around, going deeper and deeper into the woods. Eventually I finally got the dog to come to me, but it wasn't wearing a collar, so I wasn't able to get a hold. My friend and I look away for just few seconds to discuss strategy, and when we turn back around, the boy and the dog are both gone. It was like they completely vanished. Keep in mind it was autumn, so any footsteps could be heard from quite afar. But it was just silent. Not a single trace of them anywhere. Still don't really know what happened. Maybe they ran away real quick. Who knows? Was definitely enough to creep us out though. I was in a large wooded area near my BF's home, with him, hanging out nearly at midnight. We had gone in pretty deep and it required a good amount of climbing. The closest path was maybe 5 to 7 minutes climbing down, so it was highly unlikely someone could be at that spot, that time of the night, besides us. As we were kissing and stuff, he thought he saw a shadow move 20 to 25 feet to the left of us, climbing, but it stopped suddenly when my BF looked at it. He told me to be wary, and that exact moment we saw a dark figure climbing a little up, but diagonally, like he tried to go directly above where we were. We didn't move, and watch him till he closed the horizontal gap and was directly above us, maybe 15 feet of steep downhill thick forest. Then he began to come towards us. Without skipping a bit, my BF grabbed my hand and we almost ran downhill till the path. We made it in less than 2 minutes while still holding hands and listening to the man running behind us. We ran as fast as we could down the path and out of the forest, where there was a cafe and some basketball and tennis courts next to the wooded hill, and of course, people. As we realized we came really close to be mugged or worse, we vowed never to go there at night again. In Auburn, Alabama in 2008. It was Halloween and we Googled haunted houses. I can't remember what the website was like, or if there even was one, but it was like 45 minutes away. I know that it wasn't like a big attraction, and we figured it was on someone's land and would be like a local deal. We drove out there at like 10 p.m. This was before iPhones and GPS, so we had MapQuest directions. We ended up going down a pretty country road for a while with no street lights, then turned down a legit dirt road that went through the woods. Pitch black. Went down it for like 10 minutes and finally saw an old house with a sign by the driveway that was handwritten and said, "Haunted House." No other cars or lights or people anywhere. We pulled in the driveway and sat there for a second like, alright, this is fucked up, we should leave. All of the sudden an old pickup truck turned on about 15 feet in front of us, facing us, lights shining right in our faces. It started driving towards us, down their own driveway, that we backed out and peeled out. It followed us, like almost bumping our rear end. Right on our tail down this pitch black dirt road in the middle of the Alabama woods. We were flipping our shit. It was Texas Chainsaw Massacre / Hills Have Eyes stuff. He stayed out our tail, blinding us and almost bumping us all the way back home until we got off our exit and he finally let us go. No idea who was driving. I always think what would have happened if we got out of the car when we were in that driveway. I've mentioned it on here before, but I found the body of a murdered woman in the woods when I was 10. I was collecting cans to trade in for money, and walked to a party spot in the woods, and she was lying face down in the grass. This was in '97 or so, and I found out a few years ago it's become the center of a local urban legend, and the story going around is quite different than what I experienced. It messed me up pretty bad for a while. While hiking on the Pacific Crest Trail, I was ready to quit for the night, and saw a clear spot with no pine cones or sticks to remove. I assumed someone had cleared it before me, but when I stepped on the spot the earth sank like it had just been put there. I slept on the spot but pondered about it. The next morning it became clear that someone had dug up that spot, and then covered it. I think I slept on someone's recent grave. I was walking my dog through the woods and she'd find the odd bone, thought nothing of it, but then she ran towards a huge black sack and was going nuts for it. I opened the bag and it's filled with bones. Kind of fucking weird, but I'm still like, okay, just be hunters around or something. But then I walk a bit further and start seeing more and more bags, then a huge cluster of them, at least 20 right there, all filled with bones. I decided my dog had a long enough walk after seeing that. It was dark and I was sitting around a bonfire with 4 friends in rural North Carolina. We had been drinking and they had smoked a bit, I wasn't at the time, and were taking turns telling stories. A lull came in the conversation and the black silhouette of a 6th person stood up and faded into the surrounding darkness. We decided that we'd had enough for the night and packed everything up before walking back to a friend's house. All 5 of us swear there was a 6th person there but don't remember any kind of discernible characteristic besides they seemed to be covered in shadow. When I was a kid, I used to live on a tiny property in the woods. My house was basically built around where stables were once. My room was, back when it was still stables, where the hay was stocked. Before getting to the creepy thing, I need to say some other stuff. When you were in my room, you could sometimes smell hay out of nowhere. My dog was always refusing to go upstairs because something was scaring the shit out of it there. You could sometimes hear knocking on doors. There were 3 entrance doors in my house, sometimes all at once. Now that this have been said, we can go to the fun thing. So my room had a big ass window that gave a big view over the woods, and my garden was basically a clearing. Once, I fucking heard a kid giggling from upstairs. I ran there only to find my window open, and something running out in the woods that I spent 2 more years in this house and fucking felt insecure the whole time.